Hello, my name is Lauren Benjamin, and for my reading log number 6, I chose to do Yellow Star by Jennifer Ward. It was released in 2006. The Marshall Cavendish is the publisher. The genre is historical fiction, probably, poetry, maybe even a little bit of a biography in a sense. The number of pages is 227, and for the age, I would say just because of the content, it's probably going to be like 12 to 15 because it is kind of, graphic / sad. So this book takes place, as you can see, Yellow Star, it kind of takes place during World War II, well, not kind of, it does, and it follows a girl named Sylvia. It is actually her experience during World War II. She, lived in Poland with her family and was in the Lobz, ghetto, which is kind of like where they kept everyone before going to a concentration camp. So her family was there in Lobz when they started to invade, and so they moved to Warsaw to get away, and they had to come back because since they were Jews, they couldn't find any jobs, so they came back and they ended up in the ghetto. While there, Sylvia kind of talks about her everyday struggles of just being Jewish, how like they had to give up everything, how they were forced to move, they were forced to do jobs for no pay, they didn't get to go to school, they didn't get to play, all that jazz. Then it kind of takes a more darker turn where it starts to talk about how Sylvia is losing all her friends because they start taking all the children to this camp called, I'm going to butcher the name, Chelmno, which was like, I guess, a place before they took them to concentration camps, children. So the parents feared this, so they decided to hide Sylvia, her sister, and their cousin from like cellar to cellar, constantly moving them so they couldn't be found. Then it takes an even darker turn when at the end Sylvia learns that all of her friends have either died in concentration camps and were burned, or had just completely disappeared. They don't know what happened to them. Some they think died, some they think escaped. They have no clue, and that's unfortunately a sad part about World War II. We don't know a lot. And then they tell us a little bit of data about how like Sylvia, her sister, and their cousin were 3 of 12 kids to survive out of the Lobz ghetto, and the Lobz ghetto to start with had over 270,000 individuals. So quite a few of them were children, obviously. As for the illustrations, once again, there aren't any illustrations. However, there is in the back like a bunch of dates and locations with a little tiny explanation, and it's kind of used as a key. That way, if you are struggling with the timeline, because this is written, like I said, in poetry, it's kind of like a free verse poems from story to story rather than chapter to chapter. So if you're kind of getting lost with the timeline, especially if you don't have any knowledge about World War II, the author kind of gives you help so you can follow it. Like I said, this is 12 to 15, probably because like the writing is not super hard, but the story is just so intense that I feel like you kind of need to be older to fully understand and grasp it and really appreciate it. I think it's important for children to read because in like middle schools when you're starting to really learn about World War II and everything, and when you're hearing about history, it's kind of hard to like understand because it's just giving you a bunch of facts. I feel like this story helps put a face and like an actual face to the story, and so you're able to really help it understand. And I think that's important, especially as teachers, because we're constantly wanting to raise the next generation. And one thing we always talk about is we don't want history to repeat itself. Well, this is something we never want to repeat. And I think if we have a face to the numbers that history gives, we're able to actually allow it to sink in and not have history repeat itself. This story is actually super personal to me. I've never read it before, surprisingly. I thought I'd read a lot of like World War II books, but I haven't read this one. I'm actually really glad I found it because my ancestors are actually from Poland. They escaped right before World War II. My great-grandparents did. But so like where my immediate family was not affected, my great-grandma and my great-grandpa, their immediate family was affected because they knew aunts and uncles that were still over there. Fortunately, our family's Catholic, so they didn't have to go to concentration camps or anything. However, they would always tell my great-grandma about stories, which my grandpa then would tell me about the stories that he heard. And even though, yeah, they weren't in that, they still had to witness all of it, and the stories were horrific. And a lot of people always talk about how, like, oh, we don't understand how people could just allow this to happen. Well, my grandma, one reason that she never spoke, or great-grandma, one reason that she was never able to speak up is because they didn't know what would happen if they did. They see all this horrible stuff happening, and she was always like, if I speak up, am I going to be one of the ones that, well, not my great-grandma, but, like, her sister and stuff. They'd be like, am I going to be the one that has to go to the concentration camp now? So that, it kind of helps me understand, like, why people did not speak up. As for my activity, because I was thinking about doing, like, a little mini project where, because you can find names about American soldiers, Nazis, Jewish kids, like, all those things. Give them a name, assign each kid a name in the class, and have them do research on their person. And after they've gathered a lot of information, then I'm going to have them write, like, a little short story, kind of how this was written, with, like, short poems that make up the chapters, telling the story of Sylvia, but having each child do that for the person that they were assigned. And then we can all kind of do, like, a little mini book report at the end, so everyone can kind of hear different sides to the story. Because I feel like this story, yeah, it gives the concentration camp kid, but it might be cool to hear the story of, like, an American soldier, or even interesting to hear the Nazis' point of view. Like, just hear all different sides, kind of be a fun project. So yeah, that's my reading like number 6.